Good morning. This is Vaughan in Nova Scotia. I have an audience today. My two cats have decided to sit and watch me. You can see that they're friends, but not quite perfect because they stand apart. But anyway, I haven't done a video for about a week, so I figured I would sit back down, and I've been doing lots of other things, cleaning up the woods around my backyard and chipping, making mulch and stuff. And I got a haircut, right? So finally I decided to go to the hairdresser since March. So that's what, 9 months without a haircut. No, it's less than that, 7-8 months. But anyway, I needed it. So I'm gonna throw some tea balls. And I thought it'd be interesting because they're very small balls of clay. And so like everybody, you know, our hands are a certain size and we can center a certain size of clay perfectly, and then after it gets too big it struggles, and then if it gets too small we struggle as well, because you've got to get your hand inside something and around it. So I was going to show you how to, you know, do a few different things with the small tea balls. I've done videos on tea balls before, but this time I'm going to do two styles. One's like a classic that I've loved for 35 years, making this little shape, and then another one is a new shape that I just tried, and I made 4 and I sold all 4 to one person within 10 minutes of putting it in the showroom. So I thought, boy, I better make some more of those. But anyway, I'm going to throw on a Brent CXC. It's an old one, but it's a really beautiful wheel. It's been going for 30 odd years. I've used it before in videos, but it does make a slight humming noise. It's not silent like the Whisper that I have by Shimpo next door, but that's only a few years old. This one is really old. Anyway, so let's get this down a little bit and get my light. I've put a light right here so you can get a good shot of the actual light. I'm wearing my really dirty apron. One day I'll wash it. All right, that should give you a good view, as long as I don't splash the camera with the water. Anyway, if you're watching this for the first time, I'm a potter in Nova Scotia, which is on the northeastern side of Canada. After you leave here, if you go further east, you're going to hit Cape Breton, and if you go even further than that, you've got to get on a big ferry and take you to Newfoundland. You wouldn't want to do that today because it's quite a stormy day. It's very grey outside. Very big grey, battleship grey kind of sky and water. All right, okay, let's see. Okay, I would say these balls of clay are about 1/3 of a pound. So that is probably about 180 grams. Is that right? Something like that. 175 maybe. But anyway, little tiny balls of clay. Okay, make sure your bat, I cleaned the bat off, I left a little moisture on the bat, and then banged a piece of clay down that had no water on it, so basically it will stick easily. All right, and if you want to make sure that it's stuck, just put one hand down on top, just to make it seal on there. And then elbow resting on the wheel splash pan, other elbow is on my knee, and put pressure on with both hands. It's always a good idea to put the pressure down a split second before you put the pressure in from the left. See, go in from the left, down with the top hand, and that really kind of makes sure that it's sealed. And then trying to equalize the pressure and let go slowly. I've shown you before what happens, but if you've got all that pressure on and you let go fast, it just wobbles. And that's the tendency with people beginning, is to let go too fast. So you just kind of let go slowly before the clay dries out, and then it'll stay centered. All right. You see how big my hands are, this tiny piece of clay? Press down, I'll leave about just under 1 centimeter at the bottom, and pull out. All in the same movement, because it's so small you don't have to re-wet your hands. And then I always put my finger to the shoulder to the right of the center and pull it back to the center. That's the opposite of what I was doing here by pulling out. So I'm compressing the molecules of clay there so they're not stressed in one direction. And I've never had S-cracks because I was shown that by Robin Hopper. So about 30 years ago. All right, then move to the other side. Put your finger down, and this bat just moved a little bit then when I started the pull, so that means it's going to knock a little bit, and some people that would put you off, but you can compensate. I put my little finger down. If a bat starts moving underneath as I'm doing a pull-up, I put my little finger down, wet it again, so I put my fingers down, and this little finger puts pressure down on the bat, see, pushing down, so it doesn't knock as much. You can often do that until you get so high up that you pretty much just have to follow the fingers with your little finger up the wall. But see how my little finger stays there on the bat? So I'm pushing the bat back down so it doesn't knock. Because that thickness of down there is where I'm putting all the pressure on. And so I'm lifting the bat up, basically, but this little finger's pushing it back down. All right, so I'm going to try that one more time and get a slightly taller piece. And it's flaring out just a touch. Then just compress your rim a little bit. Now, the shape that I just basically just tried and I sold all 4 straight away is just a glass, basically, rather than a T-ball. Anyway, I'm going to form the foot first, just with this rib. Go on, it'll make it easier to cut it off afterwards. And then I use the other side of the rib to give myself a nice pedestal-like foot. Now this is the shape of this rib, because this is not a bought rib as you would buy it, because it's worn out. But let me just show you this, because I've used it in many videos, and people can buy these ribs, but they're so different when they're brand new. Let's get it cleaned up a bit more. But after they've been worn in, you really get to, as I've called it, your best friend. But basically, it's one of those pointed ribs that has a right angle at one side and a point at the other, but I've just worn this out and it's now beautifully shaped so I can get whatever I need from it. But anyway, that's the foot. And then I have a little throwing stick. Get it nice and clean. There's no bits of clay on it that are going to stick in the side of the piece. So it's a small throwing stick, basically. And then I'm going to wet the piece again. Dribble the water right at the rim so it goes inside and out, so it's evenly wet. And then this, I'm just going to push out, not at the very bottom, just lift it up a touch. And where I can see it pushing out, I'm putting my finger just above it to push in again. So it makes that little extra belly. Then I lift it up a touch, put pressure on again, lift my finger above it again. Lift it up a bit higher, put pressure on, then lift my finger above it again. And this time I'll push out a little bit more so that each little belly is a little further out than the one beneath it. And that's simple. I just, I made 4 of them to go with a teapot actually, and I was calling them little T-balls drinking glasses, but I sold the teapot and all 4 glasses to one person over the weekend, and I'd only put them out 10 minutes earlier. There you go. Sponge on a stick to get the water out. I got a little square piece of sponge on this sponge on the stick. I should probably get well, no, it's probably going to work. It's a bit wide for this piece. Let's see what happens. You've got to have some courage when you're doing pottery. Well, it went in fine. Pull it back out. It's a fairly soft sponge, so it didn't dent the form at all, so I'll keep using that one. And then if your clay has grog in it, or grit, this is what I use, like a little, it's like a piece of leather. I've shown you these before on my videos too. It compresses down the rim a little bit. Alright, just to kind of give you a nice rim that's rounded so the glaze doesn't leave sharp edges. If it was a sort of flat rim, you'd have two corners, which would leave a place where the glaze can kind of run away from. And it's an added thing is if you've got grit or grog in your clay, it pushes the grog deeper into the actual clay so you don't end up with a rough rim. Alright, so put some water down and then slowly with your bat, turn it, pull through, and the piece will release. Got to be gentle doing that.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
No thank you, Siri, I'm doing a video.
You're welcome.
Isn't that funny? We've got people listening to us in our studios. Alright, so let's just watch. Yeah, who knows what is going on in the background when we have those little what do you call it, intelligent speakers and computers that can answer questions. They just suddenly turn on for the strangest little word that you might say. All right, that's one. So 1/3 of a pound. I left a little bit of clay on there, so this will stick a little easier this time. But you always clean your wheel before you start, so that there's no water left, so the piece will stick easily. All right, top hand first, pressing it down. Left hand, next time you push down and then push in with the side hand. And do that many times, you know, 3, 4, 5 times, just to kind of get the clay even, and then go for the center. My left elbow is on the splash pan, my right elbow is on my knee or my thigh, so I'm very well kind of settled on this wheel. And then basically, I must have let go just a touch because it went off center a bit. Alright, there you go. Now hole in, get yourself really steady, push down, about 1 centimeter just under, you pull out, and that opens up the piece for you. I like to leave just under 1 centimeter for my foot so I can trim out a hollow area to put glaze in when so I only have the little ring of the foot that is unglazed. And I sometimes use stilts too to fire on. Alright, so I did the little shoulder to the center from the opposite side, then I pulled. That way I'm recompressing the clay. Slow the wheel down, and now I'm going to do a pull, but I'm using my little finger to push down because this bat is juddering on the actual wheel head. So my little finger on my right hand is pushing the wheel head down again, and that stops it from doing that juddering. That's a good tip. Only works on small pieces, but wet right on the rim, it dribbles inside and outside. Push in with your fingers, and there you got my little finger again pushing down on the bat head. You can hear it clicking a little bit. And now I've got to lift up because my hand is only so big. There you go, let go slowly. Dribble the water right on the rim. There you go, hitting the rim so it goes inside and out. I wet my hand too. I put my fingers in. And I'm going to do one more pull. And this one I'm going to make a little wider than the last one. Let go slowly at the rim, but touch down a little bit just to compress the rim a touch. And that's when I've done that, you've got those two flat little corners that would make the actual glaze run off the edges. So that's why I did the tool that compresses the rim. Wet it a little bit. Tool go, oh no, I've got to do the foot first. I like doing the foot before I do I finish the foot before I do the final finishing of the form. There you go. So I've got a foot that I would just have to sponge that. I don't need to trim it, except I would trim because I like to do the hollowing underneath the foot. All right, so then the rib goes inside, down to touch the bottom, then I lift up a touch, so I push in, push out, just above the foot. There you go. And I push in with my finger on the outside to give my first little curve. Lift it higher, lift my finger higher, and push in and push out with the rib on the inside, my finger on the outside. Lift higher, put my finger above again, and press a little further out so the belly of the top is much wider than the one at the bottom. Let go slowly, and there you got it again. Now, I never did this to other pieces, so I'm sure it's not new at all, but basically it was interesting that after all these years you can still do something for the first time and get an instant kind of reward of somebody appreciating it and buying it. I've often done, I can show you on the next piece actually, like a what I call a wobbly mug, but never something as even as this. Okay, oh, the wind is howling now. This is like a mini nor'easter out there. So this will, the rubber band will actually curve it a little bit. There you go. And then let's get it cleaned up. I can't use the metal rib on the outside, but I can run the sponge up and down, get all the little bits of moisture off. Alright, then wet it. And then we'll run the wire, will drag some of that water underneath the piece. It didn't release that time. Drag some water under there, then it'll release. So this one I think is a touch bigger than the last one. I don't weigh my clay, so I actually like to make things different. Oh, look at that though. Almost identical. All right. So I guess what I'll do is I'll show you one of those wiggly mugs that I do. This is a slightly bigger piece of clay. This is about, it's not a pound, but it is a bigger piece of clay. Move the clay around a little bit. This was a piece of clay I was doing handles with, and I just bunched it together, so it may be a little uneven. So I moved it around 2 or 3 times just to even up the consistency. Put the hole in, open it up, do the compression from the other side to the center to get rid of any stress you might have created by pulling it open. And then my little finger is going to hold the bat down while my other fingers pull the wall up. See how my little finger is pushing down all that time? Of course, as it gets taller, you can't do that. Anyway, pushing in a lot this time because I'm doing one of those wiggly mugs that I haven't shown you before, I don't think. Maybe I have. I've been doing videos for probably almost a year, maybe. Okay, so pushing in again, grab some clay, pull up. Usually I have to get some practice when I do my wiggly mugs, because the first few you have to judge the stiffness of the clay. Okay, there's the foot again. Now you've got to make sure, let's get the water out first, just to make sure there's not too much water in there. I need it wet on the inside before I actually do a wiggly mug. So I took it out just so I don't have to take too much out. And then I'm just going to dribble some back right on the rim so we know it's wet all the way up. And then for the wiggly mug, you put your fingers and you judge the speed with rotation, with how much you're going to pull up, how fast, and you go like that. So that's a less uniform piece than I was doing with the little T-bowl type glasses. But if you do that wrong, it'll collapse, obviously. And then you've got to get all the water off before it softens too much. And follow that little ripple all the way up. You want to get all the water out if you can, so that the underside of those rings won't actually... There you go, that's what I call a wiggle mug. You spend all your life learning how to throw on center, and then somebody shows you how to make something off center. That's life. Okay, we'll put that over here. Now I'll show you the T-bowl that I've loved making for decades. All right, 1/3 of a pound. Go center the clay as you normally would. Both of my cats have gone to sleep now. It must be boring. Okay, put your hole in. 1 centimeter up, pull out a little bit. Compression from the other side to the center. Okay, wet it again. Push in hard. It's knocking again, so my little finger is pushing back down on the wheel head, so I can stop the bat from moving up and down a little bit. If it was a new bat, it may still judder. Okay, push in deep on the outside and lift up. Okay, let go slowly, compress rim. Lots of water right on the rim. Now this time I push in with my second finger in from my little finger underneath to make that foot shape, lift up just a touch, and then I pull out. My middle finger on the inside is pushing out. And then I start coming back in at this point. And I go slowly, just compress the rim. So that's the basic starting shape for the T-ball. Then I'm going to make my foot. My finger is just above the rib there, so it gives me that double ring, as you can see. And then I turn the tool around, compress down underneath a little bit, and then using a little metal rib, they're very flexible, these ones, and I push with my middle finger inside out. I angle the metal rib so it's really going out a long way, and my middle finger just pushes the clay along that metal rib till I've got that underside there. And then just don't widen the top too much. I'm going to have to go back and widen it a touch more because that didn't go as much as I wanted it to. Yep, I need to open that a bit more in the middle. And it was drying a little bit, so I'm going to drop some water down in there. So, angle the metal rib on the outside, push out, I want to get just a bit wider, and then pull out, push out with your middle finger on the inside, and now push with the rib, and I bring my finger over the top to try and curve that in a touch more. So I'm trying to keep the top a little bit more curved in. Now I'm going to get the water out, because I poured a lot of water in there that time. And take a look at it. I think it's still not quite right, so I'm going to push down at that underside of the belly. And now I'm pushing out with my middle finger again, compressing with the rib. Right at the rim, just to kind of curve it in just a touch more. Okay, that's pretty close. Every time I make one of these, there's a tiny fraction of difference between them. But I trim these, and I've got some various tools that I will use to facet and maybe mark the outside area there. But I think you can see what we have. All right, so that's a very comfortable form to put in your hands if you're drinking wine or juice and all that. So now I learned this shape from a potter called Tim Mather from the United States. So that was 1980s. So I've been making this over a long time. I think Tim is in Indiana these days. I think he's a professor, although he'd be in his 80s, I think, now. At least in his late 70s. So you take it off. It's just sitting on my fingertips. Make sure it slides on the bat. There you go. Alrighty, well, I guess dry my hands off a touch. That's probably getting on there time-wise now. So, so this is Vaughan, westcoatbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada, with a new haircut, and my cats are asleep. Everything is good. Life is good. No COVID. We do have some COVID in Nova Scotia now. We have about 40 cases in the entire province, which is so very minimal, but we are waiting, you know, eagerly to see whether the numbers start going down. I hope everybody is safe and wearing a mask and social distancing, and keep your groups small over the holidays, you know, since we don't want anybody to miss Christmas in 2021. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye-bye.